At the White House, the job of interpreting every word falls to a groundbreaking team of American Sign Language interpreters. Ed O'Keefe takes us inside their work.
Good afternoon.
At the White House, the president, first lady, and the press secretary are usually the most familiar faces, but for thousands of Americans, that box in the right-hand corner of the White House live stream is where their eyes usually focus. Elsie Snecker is the first official White House American Sign Language interpreter.
This is a dream job of that combination of the political information and the interpreting. It fits me very, very well.
Every day, whenever the president speaks,
My fellow Americans,
whenever Jen Psaki holds a press briefing,
And I know there are a few topics to discuss.
or when experts like Dr. Anthony Fauci share new information from the White House,
The safety of these vaccines have been clearly established.
Elsie is on screen too.
I have to recognize and thank really the deaf community and the grassroots deaf people who pushed so hard to make sure that this access was available.
About 500,000 use American Sign Language, which is not the English version of sign language, but its own language entirely, with its own grammar and sentence structure. During the pandemic, advocates sued to get live ASL interpretation during COVID briefings.
We will have an ASL, an American Sign Language interpreter.
The Biden administration went a step further, hiring Elsie, who's deaf, as a member of the staff. We spoke to her with the assistance of Miyako Villanueva, who signed my questions to her and spoke her answers back.
So absolutely, I am blessed to be here.
And Elsie is just one half of a team.
This is really the ultimate of team relationships.
Lindsay Snyder, who can hear, is also an ASL interpreter.
I am interpreting from English to ASL, and I am essentially feeding Elsie, who then takes that message and interprets it. What I call it real-time editing.
Elsie and Lindsay spend hours each day preparing by reading up on the news and topics on the White House schedule. When an event starts,
thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Lindsay listens, then interprets for Elsie,
We're seeing the beginnings of an American manufacturing comeback
who signs in front of the camera
as the United States is in a position to outcompete the world once again.
onto your screen.
There's no limit to what we can achieve. None.
They could just hire someone like Lindsay to do this work, but in essence, they've gone the extra step of hiring somebody who is completely deaf.
Deaf people who are ASL users can watch and identify that it's a deaf person signing on the screen. Most hearing interpreters, they learned ASL, so they have an accent in ASL, where a deaf person who grew up using ASL doesn't have that same kind of accent. We also, as deaf interpreters, can gauge what a deaf audience would potentially need. That some kind of terminology is clearer than others. Some things need a little bit more expansion and explanation.
Natural performers with a great sense of timing, they say the best part of their day is the daily press briefing.
One of my favorite parts, and it's actually related to you. Are you ready?
Okay.
Often, someone will ask a question,
And then on infrastructure,
and she answers it.
back on infrastructure.
And then somebody else asks a question, and I'm like, in the back of my mind, didn't they already ask that? And then the third person asks, and I'm like, she answered it already. So I'm having this argument with myself in the back of my head while I'm working and trying to keep my cool on the screen.
Is there something those of us in the room should be doing to help it along?
Make friends with your consonants. I love a good articulator.
The one-year anniversary of the American Rescue Plan.
I also believe that no one speaks or reads faster than Jen Psaki.
Believe it or not, Elsie and Lindsay had never met Psaki in person,
It's so nice to meet you.
but we helped arrange a meeting.
Press briefings are my favorite. We tell everyone.
Or maybe I talk a little fast. Okay, I'll work on that too.
This is the ultimate kind of team. We have our own skill set that manages to come together to put out the most effective message to bring in a community that's been marginalized for so long.
I'm not here for myself to be in this position. I'm here for the deaf community to have access to this message.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Ed O'Keefe at the White House.
Ed O'Keefe, that was so interesting. I never
Delightful.
thought about a difference, Tony,
Yeah.
between a hearing interpreter and an interpreter who's deaf, that
First
they
of
would
all,
translate differently.
Such a charming, interesting piece. The idea that if you are born deaf, you have a different way of signing than a person who is learning it as a hearing adult. That's very interesting. Like, there's an accent to the movements.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if Jen Psaki slows down. They said she talks too fast. We'll see.
You got to be yourself. Everyone's
great
being
piece.
themselves.